Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 124, and our book is Void Stalker by Aaron Dembski-Bowden.
Do you have your copy of just Void Stalker, or do I need to reach back here?
I do, but it's in the basement.
Fine. So here, this is what I was using.
Excellent. This was one of the first ones I listened to the audiobook.
I listened to the audiobook mostly because I listened to the first one in audiobook, and and I loved it so much that I've listened to the other two.
Yes, I actually have comments to make on the audiobook about that. But
your comments are wrong. So
no, anyways, the book is about the final chapter in Talos and his merry band of murderers and their adventures across the universe. We posted several questions on our website, WH40k@club.com, and we encourage participations in our conversation via YouTube, Twitter, our site, or encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning! If you haven't yet read this book, we're going to be discussing it and laying it bare from start to finish, so definitely check out the book, then come back to this episode so we don't spoil it for you. Look, no judgment, okay? There's a lot of books that we haven't read after 20 years.
No, I mean, I was just curious when it was originally published, and it's 2012.
Yeah, that sounds right. Like, read my memory. Sounds right. All right, with that, let's dive in. Carrie, did you like the book?
That's a complicated question.
You know what? Okay. All right, y'all.
So,
mark this down. I agree.
It's, when I liked it, holy crap, did I like it. Other parts, I'm like, God, this is meandering, and what's the point?
It kills me inside to say I agree with every single part of that.
However, it's fitting that it was meandering because I really feel like this was Talos and the remnants of the 10th Company just trying to figure out their purpose. What are they doing? They don't know.
So I often refer to ADB's Night Lords as the Lost Boys. And this is the book. Okay. I forgot this is the book that gave me that moniker. I read this book when it first came out. Again, I have my copy of Void Stalker sitting in my basement in a box. I read it when it first came out, which was, to be fair, was a while ago. After reading other books, obviously, since then. Going back and rereading it, I liked this book very much. It's definitely the weakest of the trilogy. And yes, it does. Like, there were certain parts of the book where I was like, okay, yeah, let's have some progress happening here, guys. But I think you are correct that it is indicative of them being the Lost Boys. They don't really know what to do, and they don't really know where to go, and they have no direction and no purpose, and other than malice.
Right.
But the parts of this book that resonated with me, which we'll talk about here in a second, really are just, there are some parts of this book that I think are ADB's finest writing. What part stood out to you, Carrie?
Honestly, the part that stood out to me the most, I mean, aside from Zarl's death, which actually like choked me up. I was like, when it happens, I was like, I did not see that coming. Honestly, the thing that stood out to me the most is literally the last line in the book. When Malkarian sees the Void Stalker, what's left of her crawling, he's like, man, I have to finish everything for that boy.
We're going to talk a lot about who lives, who survives, Decimus. But yeah, Malkarian, look.
Malkarian's just great.
Malkarian's just awesome. And the Dreadnoughts occupy such an interesting space for all of the legions. Every time we see a Dreadnought, I feel like the Dreadnoughts always steal the show. And they are always a character. Like almost every book that we've read for this podcast, the Dreadnought, we're like, oh my God, Dreadnought was one of our favorite characters. Am I right?
So there's the Saint Dreadnought. There's the White Wolf of the Lake. There is Bjorn.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Bjorn goes without saying.
And now Malkarian. Yeah, that guy. God.
yeah, he's a great character in general. I like his kind of internal musings when he's like, yeah, the Night Haunter said that I probably would have been a better Ultramarine, but nah. But then, well, it's okay. We're going to talk more about that in a second. That was a wonderful, wonderful line. It was a good way to wrap that up. And also, an Eldar died, so everything's good in the world.
Yeah. I mean,
Zarl's death.
I will say that, so that whole fight with the Genesis Marines kind of made me laugh all the way through it. Just because they were like, oh my God, I forgot how much the 13th likes the sound of their own voice. It's funny. It's funny.
They're getting their asses beaten. They're still like, God, you guys are annoying.
Oh, another favorite part I had was at Mercutian's death. When the Void Stalker is killing him and she's trying to run, he basically slices her legs and was like, now try to run. Laughs as, she does the final blow. I was like, how fitting. And then
how fitting for poor miserable Mercutian.
And when Talos sees her later, he's like, I wonder who did that. She's not running as fast.
Like, oh, I noticed that you're injured.
That was a parting gift from Mercutian.
Oh my God, he's... Ugh. Anyways, we'll talk more about this. I have to say really quick, Zarl's death remains one of my top 10 scenes in all of Warhammer 40k from start to finish. From the second that he starts talking with their champion, when the champion is like, I knew these men and they died with courage and honor. And Zarl's like, I know these men. They'll die as they lived, running. He just, the mockingness of him is great.
And the whole time, and when Syrian is there just laughing.
Well, and Syrian, and it's funny because Syrian goes from this is funny to holy shit.
Right.
I've never seen anything like this. And the thing that I liked about that is that they spent the first 2 books, they established that Zarl is dangerous, but even in this book, right, they're like, look, anybody who wants to have a death duel has to go against Zarl, and everyone's like, ooh, never mind. Like, they spend all this time for across 3 books establishing that Zarl is the guy nobody wants to mess with. And he demonstrates it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, by the way, yeah, this is why this guy was so scary. He is legitimately a guy not to mess with. And
he wakes up Talos for Talos to say, so that's what getting hit with a thunder hammer feels like. And so I was like, you were grazed. Didn't feel like it. Are you talking? You're fine.
You're fine. Shake it off.
And then he apologizes. He's like, we'll talk about it later. He goes, yeah, we will. And then falls over. Is like, no, what? No.
His head falls forward and he just flatlines. That one just always gets me in the feels. It's one of my top 5. It's probably one of my top 5 favorite scenes in all of Warhammer. It's so well written and I love it. I love a good duel. I also, of course, love the scene when Talos realizes that Octavia is pregnant.
Oh,
because when he's just sitting there and he's like, why am I here?
So I will say it's like the prologue and everything. I was like, okay, whatever. And then he goes and talks to Octavia. I was like, okay, whatever. And then he hears the second heartbeat and realizes where it's coming from. I was like, well, now you got my attention, sir.
Well, I love that when he's just like, yeah, like everything's fine. Like he's just listening and he has a nice little chit chat with her, which is kind of fun, right? But I also do like that. And we see this later with Talos where Octavia is concerned for her child, and Talos is just like, I have skinned children in front of their parents. Do you think I care about you? But then he also essentially helps her and Septimus escape. So clearly, he kind of does.
I think
he kind of does care.
Scene right after that is just as good when he's beating the crap out of Septimus. And he's like, 2 things happened that day that's never had happened. 1, a slave reached for his weapons against him, and 2, a slave told him to eat shit in Nostroman.
And he just snorts at it. He's like, well, his reaction is great. It also kind of, I think it's a little bit of a harbinger to the rest of the book of like Talos being like, my friend from childhood, my brother from childhood is dead. And My slaves are like talking back to me. We don't know what we're doing with our lives. This all sucks. It kind of feels like it's the start of his midlife crisis, as it were.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about it, because in the end, I feel like every character gets a moment. It's a moment of clarity, a moment of revelation, a moment of badassery. Who gets the best final moment? And who deserved better?
Oh, well, Makarian has the best one, I think. But as of like for everybody else, maybe Zarl. I think Uzas got done dirty, and I can't believe I'm saying that. But when the big reveal happens with Syrian, it's like I did not see that coming at all.
When you were telling me that Syrian was your favorite character, I almost was this close to being like, Anders 2.0.
He's so mean. God,
Dragon Age references.
So mean.
No, it's he does get done dirty. It's hard to say for somebody who's clearly losing his mind. Uzas gets done dirty.
He does, but
do you think he's okay with being done dirty?
No, I don't think so. Except that at the same time, he brought it on himself.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it's not like he's never run through randomly killing people. He's never sat there, banging his head and screaming about blood for the blood god and making everybody uncomfortable. Did Syrian do him dirty? Yeah, that surprised me. But Syrian will probably still be my favorite out of them just because the guy was so funny. The guy had a sense of humor, which honestly makes the whole thing, what he was doing, like feeding on people's fear and killing them, a little more twisted, which, obviously I think it was highly suggested he was getting like a sorcerer's warp touch to him. So things were not going that well for him to begin with.
And he clearly didn't like that, because I feel like his end moment actually is
when he
believe it or not,
when he's like looking at Talos and thinks he sees Uzas, and he's just like, "Look, I've always hated you, but I am sorry." And Talos doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's just like, "It's Talos."
When he says to Talos, "Don't take my gene seed. Do not let anyone take my gene seed." That actually makes me the saddest.
Because
when he just says, he's like, "I'm done.
He knows.
I am done."
Well, and he knows what he did was wrong, which is why when he thought Talos was his ass, and he's like, "I never liked you, but I am sorry." It's like, damn.
Yeah, it's a sad reveal, especially when, for me, for some reason, and I think listening to the audiobook made it a little more palpable when he's like, "Don't take my gene seed, please." It's like, oh man, that's a rough one. His ending and Uzas's, Zarl had a great, excellent moment, but I do agree with, I think it's the ending of the second book where Talos is kind of like, Zarl dies first. It shouldn't be that way. Why couldn't Uzas have died earlier? I felt especially bad for Uzas as you see him start to kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. And he's like being like talking clearly. It was just a little sad. Mercutian, poor miserable Mercutian, who I always said is Mercutian, and listening to the audiobook and the narrator who really enjoyed that Tian.
Well, yes, he's British.
Yes, of course. But I was like, oh, God's sake.
They're like the T's except for the word little.
Or ball.
Little. No, I said little, and it's little. They like swallow it.
Same with bottle. Yes.
Yeah, but they emphasize it in Latin.
Exactly. I guess maybe if it has a T in the next letter vowel position, I don't know.
Maybe
Anyways,
if it's the two T's, little.
It's the double T they struggle with. Anyways, linguistics aside, Mercutian, that was a very good, because that's kind of his whole character throughout this, was that he's a little bit miserable and a little bit dour, but he's also stalwart, and he's there for his brother.
And he's loyal.
Right? He's very loyal. So the idea that his last moment is, you know what? I'm going to make this a little bit easier for them. Perfect.
Agreed.
Were you surprised by who survives? Looking directly at you, Lycoraphus.
Yeah.
Survives.
I'm pretty sure that the Void Stalker got him because they talked about when she ripped the spear out, how it just kind of like squawked, and rolled back over. So I'm like, okay, unless Variel was like, this is fun.
You remember when he's like eating his brothers with his helmet off and Variel's like, what are you? Are you even alive? And he's like, I got no idea what I am, Betty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Lucarifus, by the way.
That he's creepy? Yes.
He's creepy. He's repugnant. And somehow I love him as a character.
He's
but
loyal, like a dog. Like they keep talking about how they move like a hound. He was.
Surprisingly so, because they really do, like in the when you were first introduced to Lucarifus, they really set up the Raptors as being kind of like, look, we're our own thing. We don't really like you. We don't really care about you. We think about ourselves first and foremost. And they really do a nice head fake in this book where they're like, oh, hey, by the way, we're just going to leave this battle because we're going to go rescue the tech priest. Otherwise, we're not getting out of here.
Mm-hmm.
It is a nice, like, oh, there's a method to their madness. And I absolutely hate this character. And yet I love to hate him because he's so creepy and yet oddly pragmatic. Yeah. And the fact that he's in the epilogue, I'm like, oh, damn. Like, yeah. Oh, snap. And Variel. Ugh, God, I don't like Variel.
I do. I mean,
for a variety of reasons.
I think he does. I don't know. I think he's loyal. I think he, loyal to Talos anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to fix people up in his weird way and protect Gene Seed.
That's fair. That's a fair. That's actually not a bad description of him. He is not a. I guess as far as Space Marines go, he's not a bad guy for the Legion that he's glommed onto here, and he definitely has this vision of helping the Night Lords to succeed, which this book had a lot of commentary on the 8th Legion in general.
Mm-hmm.
Through Talos, through Malkarian, through Lucarifus, through basically everybody, right? Did you like all of these musings? Was that compelling? Was that where it dragged?
That's not where it dragged, honestly. Like, I didn't mind any of that at all because like I've said this before, I kind of like that when they're doing like their inner, analyses of themselves and especially when they're showing like how they relate to the other legions. Mm-hmm. It's just one thing I find fascinating with these Traitor Marines, especially the ones that are still consider themselves part of whatever legion they're from, is how they still see themselves as a legion. It's not like the war band, like the Crimson Slaughter. You have no idea where those guys came from. Well, maybe we do. They're probably from the World Eaters, but that's not important to them. And as far as they're concerned, they're not part of the Legion. But it's really interesting.
They don't refer to themselves by the Legion.
Right.
Name.
It's like, thinking of the Karn book, how they wanted to unite the Legion. The Black Legion wants to unite the Legion, but not in the same way. Like the Sons of Horus are gone. This is like we just want to bring all the traitors together to follow Abaddon under one great legion. So it's very interesting to see the OGs, I guess, talk about being part of the Legion.
It's a common theme that we're seeing. We've seen it with the Emperor's Children. We've seen it with the Black Legion in their own way, right? We've seen it with the World Eaters. We've seen it with the Night Lords. We've seen it kind of with the Death Guard, but even the Death Guard is kind of like, yeah, we're never going to really unite again. Like that, they kind of do to like fight, but they're not like, hell yeah, the Death Guard. They're more, these are our bands that we have and we come together and then we go back out again.
The Death Guard is that you got those who are loyal to Mortarion and you got those who are loyal to Typhus.
And it's been implied that that's kind of what the word bearers have going on as well. There's Team Orpharon and Team Erebus.
Well, because they're all loyal to Lorgar, but Lorgar is not around like that right now because he's probably sitting in his room going, what have I done? So we got, Team Erebus, like you said, Team Erebus and Team Corpharon, which is like Team Vomit Milkshake and Team Shit Sandwich, to be totally honest.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. And we do see some with the Thousand Sons, but they're also divided, right?
Yes.
Those who followed Ahriman, those who are staying loyal to Magnus.
It seems like that's the fate of the traitor legions. Either you break down and are like, look, we're loyal to one of these two people or one of these two visions, or we just really want to get everybody back together. We just want to get the band back together. We just can't agree on how to get the band back together.
Right.
And then that's when the fighting starts.
Well, and then you got the pockets of the various war bands that become different names entirely, like the Crimson Slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
That one always, or the, not the Red Corsairs, because there was second found. It doesn't matter. I always think of the Crimson Slaughter just because it's always on top of my head, because there was this one Ultramarines book that I read, and they were laughing about the name because they're like, well, at least we know which side they're on. like they're not hiding their intentions. It's like, okay, that's fair. But like,
to be fair, the Red Corsairs aren't either.
Well, right, but anyway, you can make arguments about the Red Corsairs being unknown. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's like you have these little individual pockets of war bands that are akin to, the watered down, the watered down old extra foundings. Which actually, so the fact they're fighting as the Genesis Marines, and they called them, I remember the exact word, but they called them like the watered down. I was like, thin-blooded is what they called them. The thin-blooded 13th. I was like, ADB gets me.
Senpai noticed me. Exactly.
Except that's the same guy, that, does the Spears of the Emperor, because he still has, because he likes his thin-blooded 13th, actually, because it's Spears of the Emperor from the 13th, I think. What isn't from the 13th? Let's be real.
Let's be very real. Yeah, they were the mentally healthiest ones because their Primarch had a mother and a father. Like had two parents. You need to have two parents to be functional. The ones who didn't, not really.
I mean, there were a
who
lot
didn't have any
parents from the Blood Angels, but then they got devoured.
They got devoured, and then that got retconned, kind of, sort of. Really, I don't know, to be honest
anymore.
But yeah, the Night Lords in general, and obviously we know that there's a little war bands and everything, but I do like this concept that a lot of the first founding Traitor Marines are like, can we get the band back together, please? Mm-hmm. Like, we need to have this. And in their minds, they feel very much like, and this is for all of them, and we've seen this in so many books, they kind of feel like the Underpants Gnomes of like, get everybody back together, question mark, question mark, question mark, profit. Like, they don't ever really seem, it's just, we just got to get the band back together. And then what? Like,
well, isn't that kind of Abaddon's first 12 Crusades?
Well, and like his thing is like, let's all come together and like, let's forge this new brothership and, be the largest pyramid scheme in the galaxy. And it just, I don't know. You recruit some of your friends in, and then you get to be a commander, and then they recruit more of their friends, and then they get to be a commander, and then you get to be. Anyways,
the Black Legion is a Ponzi scheme. Changed my mind.
Because I feel like they really are like that friend from Facebook who hits you up and is like, hey, bestie, I know we haven't talked in 15 years, but I just started a pampered chef business. Just telling you, like, this is what they sound like when you meet the Black Legion. Hey, guys, really think you would like to take the black and follow Abaddon. Anyways.
So you're saying they're like Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, kind of like that too, I guess, really. Just going door to door.
Have you heard about our Lord and Savior Abaddon?
Have you read the third book of the Bible? The third book of the Emperors, whatever, Lorgars? I don't know. Anyways, the whole thing's falling apart now.
The Letitia Divinatus?
There's a third book. Abaddon wrote it.
We call it the Apocrypha. Anyway.
It's like the Silmarillion. Nobody likes it. So, anyways, some of the musings, I really do like them. I like them all kind of thinking like, yeah. And like Talos' final thing of like, do you know my father's last words? Mm-hmm. I agree, by the way. Samesies. I don't care what happens to any of you people. And I'm just done. That kind of makes me sad. Some of the parts in the middle, though, mostly above Segualsa.
Yeah.
Basically, if they weren't on Segualsa, it felt like the book was kind of dragging a bit, and like we were kind of padding with some of these, like, well, this is why we have to go back down there, and this is what we were doing down there. And I'm like, no, we get it. Either go back down there and kill more people, or move on.
I will say though, his idea with the what he did with the astropaths, that's pretty dang genius.
It's messed up.
Yeah, it is.
And poor Octavia.
But genius.
Poor Octavia. I did, by the way, that was a part that stood out to me that I forgot to mention, because this kind of is sort of adjacent to this, is with the shriek. When they reveal how the shriek is made, I love Lucoriphus is just like, yeah, you're way more human than you let on. And Deltrian gets a little offended, and he's like, oh, no. You have to be human to think of something like this. There's a humanity to this horror. It was like, you know what? He's got you there, buddy. And what he was doing to poor Malkarian. Anyways, he doesn't ever have to pay for that bastard tech priest. With his skull face. But had to mention that because that is also integral with the astropaths. And whew, that's mean. Poor Octavia.
It's crazy. And then when everyone was like, what did you do? And he's just like, let me show you. It's like a little chessboard. Let me show you what I did. And they're like, oh my God, that's genius. Until the Eldar show up.
Let's talk about them, and then we'll come back to Tsagwaltsa. Was this a good use of the Eldari? Did they just... And also, my favorite question about them, did they just meet their future on the path to avoid it?
Well, that's how I feel about all prophecies.
Pretty much every time the Farseers show up in any book, I immediately think of one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century, and his famous quote, some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. It just, like, you guys, you never... Have I ever told you the definition of insanity?
Well, how many...
Y'all just keep trying it.
How many movies, books, name it, have used this idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy? Like,
yeah.
You know, I think of Grey Knight's book I've mentioned actually in a while, Sons of Titan, when the prognosticators are like, something bad's going to happen here, and it's because they are searching for this something bad, they cause the something bad. And it's a theme. I think we even saw it with Emperor's Gift. As they're searching for this thing, they inadvertently cause this thing. They know that they're supposed to go after a prophet. Didn't really get the details on what prophet.
Well, and I feel like maybe they should have read the fine print, because did they kill Talos? Yes. Did they destroy his gene seed?
Well, and it's not only that, but you know, honestly, like when Variel's telling Talos, "This is what I've gleaned," and he was like, "What a joke." Me? He's like, I can't even keep First Claw together, much less unite a legion.
I actually that was part of the commentary that I really liked, because I did like this concept that maybe but it also does make me wonder, because even when we go forward and we see Decimus and he's going through the room and he's just like, you're going to die doing this, you're going to die doing this, you're going to die here, you're going to die doing this, you're like, can anyone really unite this band of murderers and thugs? Like, really? Like, he even says, like, this is what's going to happen to all of you. Probably true then, honestly. Is Talos the one? Can anybody do this? Talos, I can't even unite First Claw. I actually did find that funny, and I was like, it's true, though. But it's also because you really didn't want to.
Right.
Like, let's be real. Had you put forth a little bit more effort, maybe you'd have had some different, whatever. The only thing about the Eldari that I liked was when the Banshees screamed. And I liked how Talos was like, oh, if I was human, that would be awful. This is very interesting. Like, he has a very clinical view of it, of like, oh, I'm like, my body is reacting to this. This must be terrible if you're a human.
I actually thought it was funny when they counteracted it and screamed to the point that their masks broke.
That will never get old to me.
No. They're like, oh, is this a competition? We win.
Yeah. Sorry, we can do that too. Fun fact. The Banshees in general and her character, the Void, the Stormbringer, Voidstalker, whatever.
Voidstalker, who was like kind of a letdown in the end.
She really was. I was like, oh, this is gonna be like, oh no, she's just annoyingly unkillable. And then she does get stomped by a dreadnought.
Like this, and honestly, that's one thing I always, and I know this is like a set thing that Tolkien set up. How many years ago about the elven race? They are practically perfect in every way. They're inhumanly fast. You can't kill them. They're immortal. And I know it's the same thing down the line because it's a great part of, elven lore, honestly. And thank you, Tolkien, for bringing that in. And so we come down, 40,000 years into the future and they're still like that because they can't be killed. But at the same time, it almost feels like you're putting it on easy mode. It's just, it becomes annoying. Like the whole idea of the dancing in and out. They're so fast. You can't get them. Okay. I guess that's why I find it much more interesting when they're actually fighting against Space Marines or orcs or anything else. Or even the Drukhari, because the Drukhari, they're always interesting because they have everybody do things for them. So for them to actually fight, they're like, God, shit, I don't even really know how to do this anymore. I'm so used to having my people do this.
Well, they're a little bit more interesting with their flitting about and their dancing and stuff because they actually want to come in and fight because they're enjoying that part of it. There's a sadism to it of like, haha, you can't catch me because I am evil and I'm cutting you. I'm doing stuff. I think for me, this is the one thing that I was like,
gingerbread man.
Exactly. I was like, God, I did not. I don't like that. It's when the gunship opens up on her. But she's not dead.
Because even like with her Achilles tendon sliced or calf muscle sliced or whatever, she's still able to outrun a gunship.
A gunship. Sure. It opens full auto on her. Really? Like, and she's still not dead. And I did like Malkari, and I thought that was a great gag. It was very fitting within his character, and we all have to wonder what the hell happens to him after this.
Well, he said he was basically going to, I interpret it, he's like, I'm going to go shut down. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done now. Absolutely done. But I did like that. It was a great gag. If all of the stuff that had led up to it before hadn't necessarily been quite so dramatic. Again, the gunship opening up, I know that I'm really like, really clinging on to that one, but that was just like the very definition of overkill. And yet, did not kill her. That was a little irritating.
No, but, congratulations, Voidstalker. You made the 8th Legion now look at you. They weren't even looking at you before. They didn't care.
As I said, some of the fuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. These guys would not have even cared about the Eldari before. Like, they don't care about They're you, not, really. You guys are a non-entity.
Did you guys confuse the 8th with the 18th?
First off, I hate when that happens. Right? Like, I went back and I looked at the auguries. There's a 1 in front of the 8. It also feels like such a weird pick. The Night Lords are going to be the ones who come and destroy one of your craft worlds? Like, I feel like the Farseers had this, or the Farseers or Tau. I can't even think of their name right now. Anyways, they're ESPN people looked forward and found this. I feel like somebody should have questioned it and been like, really? The Night Lord coming for us? Like, what led up to that? You would also wish that somebody would have like a fuller picture. Like, but why though? Right. Oh, because we go and we kill them. We kill an entire group of them. I have a suggestion. Let us not. And we were just dicks. Like, it wasn't just that you killed them. You were assholes about it.
Yeah.
And the Banshees are just kind of, I don't know. They seem kind of fun and kind of exciting, but The Banshees were really just there to be cannon fodder.
Right.
The Void Stalker was just OP.
She was the final boss.
She was the final boss, and it was a little bit of a letdown. Like, and I'm sure I can't think of an example of it off the top of my head right now, but I think we've all played that video game where you come to the final boss and you kill it, and you're like, "Oh, that's it? There's not another stage or something after this?"
Oh, you're talking about Fable 2.
Still have PTSD from that game. There's a few like that. Actually, I really did feel that way about the Lilith fight in Diablo 4. Like, you get to the end and you're just like, that was it? That was the whole boss? Okay, sure, why not? It was a little disappointing. It felt I had that same sense of just like,
oh man, not me. By then I was ready for the story to be over. I was like, this has gone on way too long.
oh well, no, I mean, but like me for Void Stalker, like I had that same sense of like, oh, okay, she dead. Like,
honestly,
I guess
I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like it got dragged out.
Yeah, the final boss, I will admit that the whole battle
Like they're all
leading up to
talking,
her,
and then she just appears with the gunship and kills. She puts her spear through Variel, and she suddenly turns around and kills the Coriphus and then Syrian, and then goes after Talos, and they fight, and she breaks his sword, and then she used the sword against him, and then she breaks it, and then the gunship, and she leaves. I'm like, dear God, this feels like Man of Steel all over again. This fight is going on 30 minutes. Way too long. Like, just end it already.
because she's OP. But then just her getting, I don't know, for some reason her getting then just squished by Malkaria. Like, oh.
I mean, that was perfect.
It was perfect. It was a good ending for her. Probably a better death than she deserved. To be killed by Malkarian, who, for reasons unbeknownst to us, but known to him, decides to save one of the slaves. Who, the fact that she is there with Octavia and Septimus and are like, hey, we're all going to get out of this, really warmed my heart.
Yeah.
We just got introduced to her like 4 chapters, or it was probably more like 14 chapters previous, but we just got introduced to this lady.
Well, apparently she was introduced in one of the earlier books because Septimus helped get her a leg or something, and then we just kind of forgot about her, and then here she is again. It's like, okay, cool.
Oh, that was earlier in this book. Remember after the Genesis
No.
chapter, Variel is like, yeah, they're trying to figure out who's getting augmetics, and he's just like, no, give her the good one. But like, yeah, I don't know why that little lump of sugar just, that one hit me. So let's talk about the shenanigans.
Octavia needed a nanny.
That's true. That's true. For all of like, probably 5 or 6 years that they got to enjoy their child. Anyways, let's talk about the shenanigans on Segualsa. Did it fit within their idiom? Did you like it? Was it Night Lordsy? Did it serve a purpose?
I honestly tuned out most of what they did on Segualsa. That's where the things dragged. I was just like, this is so boring. Yep. Until they tormented the astropaths. Before that, I was like, I'm so bored.
I kind of feel that. And
now fighting the Genesis Marines, that was fun. But then when that
was fun.
Then that was over, I was like, and I'm bored again.
I almost feel as though the Segualsa thing was commentary. It reads like ADB had fielded criticism that his Night Lords were not Night Lordsy enough, or that they seemed really normal-ish. Which, not even the world leaders can be berserkers at all times. Maybe they can. I don't know their lives, to be honest. But like, I felt as though that was him being like, oh, you want to see these guys be Night Lords? Here you go. Syrian murders a child. There you go. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. But do you have to bore the hell out of me with it?
Right.
Yeah, that is... I feel as though there was probably a short story in there that outside of this book would have stood alone and been really interesting, right? Of them being like, hey, we've gone to this planet and look at all the horrible things we're doing. This is why we're so scared, and look at us tiptoeing through and like killing all these people and doing awful things. And here's how we have to deal with this planetary leader. Choo-choo! Which, by the way, when the planetary leader showed up later in the book, I was like, why though?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Like, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I didn't care. I didn't care what happened to the guy. I liked the guy. I liked that Talos liked the guy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, when he shows up, I was like, really? What are you going to do?
Why are you here? Really? Like, it felt needless. I don't know. That one felt like it was padding. Actually, that whole thing with him, like, kind of, like thinking he's seeing the Eldar, that kind of felt like padding a little bit. That Seguelsa stuff, though, just as they're raiding the city. I like the idea, like, I like how they described Seguelsa. This is why this felt like it should have been like its own little short story. I like the idea that, dude, this planet's messed up. Like, we have huge problems with mutation. We have huge problems with psychers. Like, nothing here is good. The planet is kind of shitty. Like, it just kind of feels like hey, wait for it, cursed planet. Like, maybe a traitor legion at one point was doing some gnarly stuff here. I also like the idea that the Imperium, you can add this to the long litany of stuff that the Imperium has forgotten.
Right.
They're on a planet that was home for the Night Lords for a short period, that had that palace of flesh where the Adeptus Calidus Assassinorum, they went there and killed a Primarch. And 10,000 years later, you were like, just put some people on it, see what happens.
Oh, maybe it was Australia. It was their prison colony.
That could be. They're just like, surely it's fine now, though, right? People can live there now, right? I liked that as a concept. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was interesting to see and to hear about, the idea that they would come back. I like their outrage at, I'm sorry, you call this planet what? That is not its name. Second of all, do you even know what happened here? This is our planet. How dare you? Rude. I liked that concept, but
right,
them rampaging through the city, I too, when I was listening to it, was like, whew, this is we might put this to 1.5 speed.
I just kind of tuned out.
I will be honest, I got to that part of the book and I almost wondered if I kind of tuned out when I read the book originally, because I was like, oh, I forgot how long this is. Like, I forgot how long it is that they're down on the planet dicking about.
Yes, literally. I mean, yes, dicking about 100%, because that's kind of how I felt. Again, why I tuned out. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I'm not liking this book at all. This is killing me.
I actually DM'd a mutual friend of ours, Drew, and I was like, oh man, I forgot that this was the weakest book in the trilogy. Like, I forgot about this. I also forgot that it really drags in parts. I felt guilty about that. I was like, Carrie's gonna kill me.
Yeah. But then we have the very last line of the entire book in the third epilogue, and I went, oh shit. And I had my oldest son in the car with me, and he was like, what? Like, I was like, oh shit. And he goes, what? Like, the name. He's like, of what? Like, the book. He's like, oh, you're stupid. I went back to whatever he was doing. I was like, God, okay. Did not see that coming.
So let's talk about Decimus, shall we? Who is Decimus? What happens next with Decimus? Why is Decimus? How is Decimus?
Well, my question is Decimus the child or the grandchild? Because wouldn't the child be Nonus?
No, because Nonus already existed and Nonus was killed.
But Nonus already existed. I don't remember Nonus existing.
Yeah, Nonus was in the second book.
Oh.
He's that. Well, okay. So if you read the Omnibus, there's a short story where they find Nonus, and then he's there for a bit. Remember, he's the guy. After there's that scene with Septimus and Octavia and Nonus and Reuven, when Reuven kind of makes it clear that he's like, yeah, I kind of architected that whole thing, by the way, where those people grabbed you, and she's like, do you have any idea what happened to me? Because of you. And she runs off, and Septimus wants to go and chase her, but Nonus is like, oh, no, son. This is not the time to go after her. Great scene with Nonus. But so he gets killed. So yes, so Nonus is already.
Okay, so then
He lived, he died.
well, then okay, that answered my question.
So in some ways, Octavia and Septimus got a very Warhammer 40k ending. They got to be happy
For a bit.
for a moment. It actually reminded me of Knights of Macragge, those two humans who stay on the planet. And Kato Sicarius is like, so the orcs are definitely coming back here at some point. And they're like, yeah, we know. But we'll deal with that. We'll jump off that bridge when we get there, basically. And yeah, so they're gonna get a few years of happiness.
I mean, kind of. He was already kind of messed up because he got a glimpse of the warp eye. So, yeah. So they got like about as happy of an ending as Septimus and Octavia did. I just hope that maybe they weren't killed in the process and maybe they were able to have another kid.
Right, and they were just like, go, sure, whatever, we'll have another one. I doubt Varial, because I imagine Varial strikes me as the type of guy who would be like, the fact that I had to hunt you guys down, not having any of it. And neither Octavia nor Septimus strike me as okay, you can take that one. We've got 3 spares.
We have an heir and a spare.
Exactly. We had an heir, a spare, and a spare. They don't strike me as those type of people. So I think they're dead somewhere, and that makes me very sad. The question is, how long did they get together? Like, I want them to have had a happy life. Decimus, though, it's giving Clone Grim, where you have this Night Lord who was more or less brought up into the fold by Varial.
Mm-hmm.
Not fully a Night Lord, not as much as like the other Night Lords, right? So you were kind of brought up to be a Night Lord, but are you kind of like Clone Grim / a Primaris Marine, like the Space Wolves that we saw, where they're like, you got the gene seed, but I don't know if you're really.
I mean, he definitely has, Taos gene seed. That's more. Yes. That's more than obvious. I have a feeling that they did. Obviously, they did find Malik and the rest of the Atramentar. And
I did like that Varial did that, by the way. Talos told him to do it, and he did it.
And so that's how Decimus was raised whenever he was taken from his parents.
It's like 3 Men and a Baby. But for the 40k universe.
Sure. With Lucoriphus.
Oh my God.
Well, they got a family dog.
I love the idea of like 2 Terminators and a Raptor raise a child. Like, I love this idea. It's like a 40k sitcom. Varial just pops in every now and then as the caretaker or the butler. I kind of want this to happen now, and I feel like some really creative person should be able to do something like that. The comedy version of this particular story. Decimus. So is Decimus the one who was foreseen by the Eldari?
Most likely.
Do we honestly think that he can pull together the legions? Especially after he stood up there and was like, here's how like 60 of you are going to die. It's like 6 people, but anyways.
He'll be able to... Okay, I'll put it this way. He's going to be able to pull together those bands that were already planning to go to Oathway because their sorcerers saw an issue as well. Again, Eldar, if you just kept your own lane, you would have been ignored. But after that, who knows, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea. Which brings me to my major question, which is, A, do you want more Night Lords from ADB? And B, has he written himself into a corner with Decimus? That's a lot to put on the shoulders of one dude.
I don't want any more Night Lords from ADB. Like, I do think he writes it well, but I also think the story's been told.
It really makes me sad to agree with you. I actually I was on Reddit one night, like rabbit holing on Reddit, and there was a quote from, and this was from like 2015 or 2016, where ADB referenced potentially doing another 3 Night Lords books, and my first reaction was, why? Like, you told that whole story.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea that there is this character, this Decimus character out there, still carrying Talos' gene seed, so he's kind of living on in some way. And yeah, he's going to rain down hellfire upon a craft world, which everybody wins. But I'm not necessarily invested in seeing it. I wouldn't say no. Like, if a new Night Lords book was announced, obviously I'm going to buy it. Obviously I'm going to read it on day one and force Carrie to read it for this podcast as well. But I don't know that I'm like, where's the book? Where's the book?
If there was one, I wouldn't want it to be about their attack on Oathway. You know, sometimes there is some, you know, because then I think you get more into the Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire.
Mm-hmm. The Song of Ice and Fire syndrome.
Where you don't have to tell every single detail.
It's okay to reference back, like, hey, remember that one time that we were on Oathway and this happened?
Right.
Or
because then you don't write yourself into a corner.
Oathway. Exactly. I don't know that. I mean, victimless crime, you took out Oathway, super great. I don't need to see every single stage of it. I think like flashbacks would be fine.
Take out Oathway entirely.
That's the other thing, is part of me wonders if, and I don't know, here's where we get into yet more like the reverse of character armor, which I don't know if we can actually have a character in the Black Library be like, and I've united the entirety of the Night Lords.
Right.
Have you though? Have you? It seems like one of those things.
But so they did this thing with Oathway. We know that they join up with the Black Legion because in that first, the Minka-esque book, Cadia Stands, that's who she actually runs into are Night Lords.
Well, some of them did for sure, right? Maybe not the whole
it's definitely not.
But
so really what I see is like, yes, they went and wreaked havoc on Oathway and they were just like, that was fun. Some went off with Abaddon.
Oh, we've got other stuff to do.
Some went off to be pirates, you know.
Right. Maybe then, like, I mean, I guess it could be more like the Lords of Silence book, where it's like, oh, we went off and we had this little side distraction of trying to kill a craft world. But I mean, at the end of the day, too, I don't know how many of those, like, anyways, I'm just not sure what else you can do with it. I'm sure, you know, it's not that I'm doubting ADB's talent as an author. I'm sure he could find something super cool to do with it. I just don't know that that's the story that I want to see.
Right.
Maybe with Decimus, maybe, but part of what made these Night Lords books so interesting was that, yes, we had this group of characters who were really interesting. Yeah, sure, he could do that again. There was that really nice dynamic between Decimus and Octavia, and just Septimus and Octavia as humans, but then also Octavia as like becoming this idea of an Imperial navigator learning to not go off of the Astronomicon. This slave who serves his masters loyally and is actually treated pretty decently in terms of slave. Like, there was all these little nice magic tricks that ADB did that I don't know that he could pull off again without it feeling like, you remember Septimus, right? Here's a new version of him.
Right.
That would be my one concern about it. So again, I would read it. I just don't know if I'm super jazzed about it.
I mean, if he did, again, I would want it to be like a different group. It's a whole different pack, you know, post-Rift, different thing, which is like, you know, kind of what I wish John French would have done instead of continuing Arimon's story. Why don't you pick a different group of Thousand Sons post-Rift? There's plenty of other things a Thousand Sons are doing besides watching Ahriman do the same thing over and over and over again and wonder what the definition of insanity is.
That's the problem with Ahriman for me, is that Ahriman just, my God, he's Charlie Brown in the football. And there's only so many times that I can read about that. I mean, obviously, yes, if another Ahriman book comes out, we're going to read the other Ahriman book. However,
I think that's the most disappointing thing to me about the Ahriman books is how I feel like the 4 books were the exact same book. Like I really enjoyed the first book. And then the others kind of felt like, okay, I see what you're doing. Like, I like the mathematician guy because I like the idea of, numbers and math with magic. That's kind of fun.
That's fun.
But everything else, I'm like, oh, this again. Oh, this again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I
yes,
feel that.
you set it all up this magical way again. Okay.
Yeah, that would be my one concern with it. That it just, at what point do we just go, more, huh?
Right.
Maybe, no, I wouldn't want to see any type of prequel. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not gonna turn down an ADB book, but I would rather see something else, I think. I would rather see a sequel to Spears of the Emperor than the Night Lords.
Sure.
Which is saying something, given how much I quote and reference the Night Lords trilogy, because it is still one of my favorite trilogies. I just did low-key forget that the third book is, where's that book that are rough?
Well, maybe he was bored.
That could be too, that he was just like, I've kind of run out of some stuff, guys.
Because I think we've all read a series where we could tell the author just wasn't really feeling it. They were maybe done with the characters or done with the story.
For sure. We've definitely, I mean, how many times have we read books where we're like, I just don't think the author was feeling this one, right? We've read several Guy Haley books where I'm like, don't think he was feeling it. I still say that about the Guy Haley Corvus Corax Primarch novel, which kills me to say. I don't think he was feeling it. I just don't.
Well, I mean, you said the same thing with some of the Gaunt's Ghost books.
Those end books were just phoned in. I don't care what you say. He went off to comic book land, and then he came back, and he thought grief machines were a good idea. Anyways. Join us for our next book.
I didn't mean to trigger a Vietnam flashback, but okay.
God. I want you to know the grief machines upset me more than the numerology thing or everyone knows there was 20 Primarchs, right? Yeah, of course. Grief engines, I think what they call it. It doesn't matter. It was stupid. Fight me. We are continuing to dig back in the Wayback Machine as we wait for new books to come out. And so we are taking yet another recommendation from our listeners. I couldn't figure out why we were reading this book. And then it dawned on me that it just came out onto audiobook. So, The Purging of Catalyst.
Catalyst, not Calidus. Cadalus.
I had to pull it up. I want everyone to know I had to pull it up on this other screen to say it because I'm like, oh, it's going to come out Calidus. Catalyst.
I think Calidus is a better name. It's just me.
I agree. It rolls off the tongue a little bit easier.
So I'm holding up the Knights of Caliban because this is the first Dark Angels trilogy, and Purging of Catalyst is the first book.
Yay!
I'm happy. I got Dark Angels and Gav Thorpe, so it's my turn.
Look, I just went through a whole thing of ADB and Night Lords, so I can say literally nothing about this. I'm going to actually give the audiobook a chance because I think it's actually the same dude who did this.
Oh, really?
I think it is. Hold on. I'm going to watch me just, Andrew Wincott.
Oh. Huh.
So.
Well, maybe I will too. I don't know.
And for those, because I'm not a big audiobook person, but as part of my I need to find some zen and calming and do something for me, I have taken up diamond painting. So I want everyone to know that I am doing the most basic bitch craft, listening to the Night Lords, and soon to be listening to The Purging of Catalyst. I'm sure that's exactly what ADB and Gav Thorpe had in mind.
Yeah. And it's a Space Marines battles book, so be interesting.
Those are typically very good, so I'm really excited for this. I am actually excited for this.
Oh, the Master Chaplain is Uriel.
Ventress?
No.
Oh.
Just Uriel. I do like how the company commander is Belial. I'm just going to be like, are you a liar? Are you a liar? Diablo references.
Are you a demon lord?
Well, I mean, he's a dark angel, so he's probably a liar.
Probably. Just saying. Since, I mean, look, the number of names that I think the Black Library, when they were creating a lot of these things, they were just like, we need a name, something that's cool. And someone was like, just grab the Old Testament, yo. Belial, there we go. Somebody was like, ooh.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because the Dark Angels, they also have I know that they have a character named Lazarus, and then there's Azrael, and, well, you know. Mm-hmm. As was what I once read, the Black Library is about as subtle as a 2x4 to the head. So,
what, Corvus Corax isn't subtle?
Karn the Betrayer.
I actually subjected my entire family to this like rant. I was like, when you think about it, Conrad Kurz is probably one of the most clever things they've done, along with Shen, because that was actually a deep cut reference. Conrad from Conrad's Heart of Darkness, Kurz, the character from Heart of Darkness, Conrad Kurz. Love it. Who kills him? Shen, like Martin Sheen from Apocalypse Now, who kills Kurz. You know what? That actually took some effort. Somebody sat around and was like, I have the best idea, you guys. And I imagine that the next person to go in line was like, I thought Corvus Corax would be really good for the Raven Guard. And his last words would be nevermore when he left his tower. And everyone was like, well, that's good too, John. That's good. Everybody clap for John too. Anyways.
I mean, maybe not everybody will get the Nevermore reference.
Maybe not. Maybe people will have to look up what Corvus Corax means. Throwing that out there.
It can happen.
It was in the same meeting where somebody was like, oh my God, we're going to have the Egyptian Terminators, magic Egyptians in space. And someone was like, oh, cool, that's Horus, right? And they were like, no, I grabbed Magnus. Ship it.
Yeah, and yet they still have the Eye of Horus. But he's not part of the Thousand Sons.
No, and we can't. I'm not even going to go into Ferrus Manus when somebody was like.
I actually really loved that in the. Oh, I can't remember if it was a Horus Heresy book. Drink, everybody. Or the Primarch novel for him, where one of the planets that they're coming to take over, and the emperor of the planet mocks him. He's like, seriously, your name is Ferrus Manus and you're of the Iron Hands. Could you like be any more like obvious? Like it really kind of smacks it in there. I don't remember which one did it, but
it is very much within the character they created for him. But I do like to imagine that if this had been a meeting in America, somebody shotgunned like a natty light before they came up with that idea.
I took Latin in high school.
That's right. Gotta use my college degree somehow. Look, I feel that.
I mean, I had to, for my foreign language requirement, I took Latin. I got this.
No one will notice. It'll be fine. You want to take us out, Carrie?
Because no one ever studies any Romance languages ever and could possibly piece together what this means, even if you don't know Latin. I mean, just...
Fine. It'll be fine.
Yes, totally fine. No one will ever get it.
No one will know.
Oh, dear Lord. All right, like Sanguinius. That's so clever. He's a blood angel. Like, never mind the fact that we talk about our humors and how our sanguine is up. We don't have, and his sanguinary guard. That's clever. It's so clever.
The sanguinary guard for Sanguinius. Like, it would be like if Reboot were to call his guards the Reboot guards. The Robo guards. I like seriously, your own.
Are you saying that they're RoboCops?
Fuck. Our train has so jumped off the rails. Like we blew through 6 stations already. Want to take us out, Carrie?
Sure. I was about to make some jokes about Vulcan, but that's okay. I'll just continue. All right. So.
With his forge. Anyways, moving on.
By his forge.
Moving on.
No one studies the Roman gods' names, okay? They don't get it. They wouldn't get it anyway.
Very niche.
Oh, the moon is Hephaestus? That doesn't. No one's going to push that together. Anyway. So you have. Oh, I'm not even drinking. We're just now punch drunk.
No,
at this
but
point.
it's been a long week already, and it's only Wednesday.
Yes, this is true. So, but you have listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Void Stalker by ADB. Be sure to join us next time for the purging of Catalyst. I'm imagining, Gav, we're going to listen to the audiobook. It's going to be like Cadillus or something like that.
Oh,
Cadillus. I don't.
Okay, that one wouldn't. That would bother me, but not as bad as like Cadillus.
Cadillus.
Like a pickle. Anyways, moving on.
Or is it Caudillus? Caudillus. I'm fascinated. I got to hear how they pronounce it. So we are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and the podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those wonderful things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. And come join our Discord. We have fun discussions, and people often share what they're painting. I'm not one of them, but I enjoy looking at them. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside the book club books, so please stay a while and read from a crack. I got nothing today, so... Oh, aside from the fact I did get to play Space Marine 2 this past weekend, and it is phenomenal. So if you haven't pre-ordered it yet and you like the first one, what are you waiting for? Just get on that.
Ave Dominus Nox? Question mark?
I'm so glad I'm done reading about Night Lords. Good night, everybody.
Thought we were friends.